Hi there. In this tutorial, we will be creating a gRPC server on the Alice build platform. To follow along, you will need an organization and a product with Alice Managed Spanner enabled. It will also help if you already created a product deployment. I'll be using PlayCT as my product, and I'll be creating a neuron called library. So in my neuron, I'm going to have things like authors and books. To do that, let's create a process under this neuron, go gRPC server as the type, use the root directory, and then let's add our resources. So I need an author, I'm going to use Spanner as the database, and I need a book. And the book resource will have the author resource as its parent. So makes sense, an author writes many books, a book belongs to an author. Again, use Spanner as the database. Cool, let's create that. Okay, now let's go to code blocks, choose the Go gRPC server code block and add it. These build files aren't as complete, like there's missing methods.go and methods test.go and things like that. And that's because we don't actually have definitions that this process can use yet. So let's add this author.proto and book.proto. Let's go to the library. I can delete the library.proto. That's the default proto file that was put down when we created the neuron. Let's look at the author.proto. It's got validate RPCs. It's got some CRUD RPCs. And it obviously has the resource. So here I can go add some other fields if I want to. Same with the book. Go add some other fields if I want to. But yeah, for now I'm just going to keep this exactly as is. And commit the author and book. Author and book resources. Okay. Once that's pushed, we'll be able to define, oh, I'm in the wrong neuron. Let's quickly go to the library neuron. So define that. Okay, and we can see our definitions with our stubs are there, and the proto bundles are busy syncing to Spanner, which is great. And yeah, there they succeeded. So my two resources are now also available in Spanner. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the process, my Go gRPC server process. And I'm going to, oh sorry, not the code block, the process. And I'm going to add the services that I want to implement. So these services weren't an option before. We didn't define anything yet, but now we can select them. And these are the services we want to implement. Okay. Now if I go back to the code blocks and I again select Go gRPC server, now the files that are suggested will look a bit more complete. You can see there's some methods.go files. Yeah, so let's drop the rest of them. And now if I look in my build folder, you can see all the files are nicely dropped for us. So a typical pattern I like to follow is to first just get my database ready. So I'm going to commit all the infra except the cloud run. So feat library db infra. Okay, and then I'm going to build and deploy that. Okay, so now my database will be deployed while I maybe tweak my code and then actually do a proper Docker build. So, well, all of this code will actually run and work from the get-go. So we might as well just commit the rest as well. Feat library first build, and then again do a build. I'm just going to do a local build. So if we change anything, it'll be quickly. Because then we've got the cache. Yep. Okay, so while this local build is running, let's quickly step through the code that was put down for us. So we've got a server.go with, you can actually see all the, some of the packages still need to be installed. So let's just do that quickly. Install required packages. Okay. Now let us step through the code. Okay, so in the server.go, it sets up our log levels, and it does the gRPC service registration for us. Also, here's our unary interceptor, which first does a validate of any request and then does the normal request handling. So our methods.go, you'll see there's a methods.go for each service we implement. Obviously has all the RPCs. The validate ones are ready and all the CRUD methods also, but you will see there's some to-dos here and there. It's like maybe as part of a book creation, you first want to check some other things, or you want to add more default values. Same with the update, maybe not with the delete. List should also not really need anything else. Yeah, so everything, yeah, all the CRUD methods and all the validate methods are basically ready to go, unless you want to add some additional checks or default values. Then in terms of internal packages, there's db.go, which for each resource that you added in your process, based on the database you selected, the gRPC server code block ensures that there's a client connection to that database. So we've got our authors table client connection, and we've got our books table client connection set up. There's some regex that basically from the ID regex that you could configure in the process puts that down here for us. So we've got an ID regex and we've got an artist regex, and that's then, yeah, for all of our resources. You can see any of the other resources in the product are also added as regex options. So if we were to interact with other neurons in the product, we have those regex options available as well. And then lastly, the validation. So this top level validate is what is called from the unary interceptor in the server.go. And then it basically just then calls the validated package validate. And the rules in here are set up based on any of the rules you set up in these other files. So the resources.go is normally where, and you can see this is where the code block, puts down the validators for resources specifically. So the author resource or the book resource. So we might want to add whatever, an author display name must be a certain length. So sf display name length range 3 and 63. Integer 3, because it could also be an integer field, and then integer 63. Okay. Cool. So yeah, you can add more validation rules for your resources, and then you can also add more validation rules for your RPC request messages. So you can again see a lot of default ones put down. So like CRUD methods, yeah, it's rare that you would need to deviate from the default validation rules. Like a get request, you validate the name. A create request, you validate the actual resource, maybe the parent as well if there is one. Update, you validate the update mask. Okay, so over here you might want to add other fields that you don't want to be updated. Delete, again, just validate the name. List, just validate the page size. And again, maybe the parent if there is one. Yeah, and then same for the authors one. So the next thing you might want to do after making changes is just test everything. So the easiest is just to quickly open your environment variables table. Use whatever deployment you are testing against as your local environment, which not only takes these environment variables, but also creates the Google Applications credential environment variable with the appropriate service account key. So then you are basically ready to test. So for example, in authors, let's test this get author. Now we're expecting this to fail because we didn't populate a name. Let's see. Okay, so it gives us name must match regex. That is as expected. Let's put some valid name, even though the resource, well, we know there's not going to be a resource yet because we didn't create one. Authors, yeah, that's fine. Run this again. This time though, no validation rule failure, but we get a not found. Again, that's expected. So let's go create an author. Okay, so author. Let's give it a display name, test author. Yeah, that's fine, nothing else. Cool, there's our author. Let's copy its name, run a get again. And yeah, all seems to work. So yeah, you would basically go through all your RPCs, just test them, but I'm quite happy with mine. And actually this build failed for some reason. Let's just see what's going on here. Okay, obviously the build failed because we at that point in time didn't install our packages yet, so we didn't have a valid go mod and a valid go sum. Now we do, so let's commit all of the changes we made and then do another build. Okay, let's see if our deploy earlier worked. Yeah, so our spanner table was created. Yeah, maybe while this build is running, let's just quickly step through the Terraform that was put down for us. So obviously the main part that just configures Google and Alice as Terraform providers, then our variables, and then the two like core resource types are Spanner or any other database like Bigtable, and cloudrun. So in the Spanner portion, there's for each resource there's a table and a binding to that table, giving the deployment build service account access to its tables basically. And then in the cloudrun section, basically just the cloudrun with the correct Docker image, correct annotations so that the gateways know which services this specific cloudrun implements, any other required envs, nothing that you need to tweak here. So let's just see that build. Okay, build is done, it pushed, and I should see a notification now. Yep, successfully built and pushed. And now I can go and deploy this build. Okay, while that is deploying, so after it's done deploying, it will also, in our deployment section, you will then see a new deployment version created, and then the gateways also starting to generate. So when it's done deploying, what we would want to do is just test our new service. So this is now in play CT. It's the library service. We're just going to test the author one, list authors, auth. We're going to do it as the service account. Okay, at this point, it's obviously going to fail. I can show you that API is not yet defined. Yes, but now once this is deployed, a new deployment version will be created, and then the gateways will also update according to the new gRPC services that are now available. Okay, so this should finish any moment. Yep, there we go. Okay, and we can see new deployment version and gateways building. So once this should take about 2 minutes. Once the gateways are deployed, we can actually make this hit. So I'm just going to pause the video for now until the gateways are done. Okay, let's see. Okay, gateways are deployed. So let's make this hit. And there you go. So we went from creating our process, tweaking our definitions, running a define, going back to the process, adding the implemented services, going into the code block again, pulling the build files, tweaking whatever we needed to tweak, and then build deploy, and there we could hit the deployed RPC. So yeah, I hope this video helps, and in future videos we will cover things like consuming other services as well as fine-grained authorization on the resources in your gRPC services.